Hello, everyone. For those of you just joining, we'll just wait a minute to make sure that everyone has entered. Wonderful. Okay. All right. So it's 5:04. I'd like to be prompt, so I will get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to NYU Stern and the MS in Business Analytics program. My name is Bronwen Sanders. I am a director of admissions for the MS in Business Analytics program. I'm also joined by our wonderful alums, and my colleague Prachi is also here from the admissions team. So again, thank you so much for all the participants and being here today. We're excited to have three of our esteemed alumni from the MSBAi program here. Today, they're going to share their experiences about going through the MSBAi program and what their experience and careers have been like since graduating. So you're going to hear about their individual stories, how the program has really impacted their careers. And at the end of the session, there also will be time to ask any questions you'd like to ask. So with that, though, I would like a minute to just do a brief overview of the program. So the MSBAi program is a one-year part-time program, and we've designed it with the working professional in mind. We have one intake per year, and we're currently accepting applications for the class of 2025 that begins this May. So we recognize your schedules are already packed. You have demanding full-time jobs, a personal life, and now you're adding a rigorous program into the mix. So we help you really balance that, your personal commitments and your professional commitments. So over the course of this 1 year time frame, the entire cohort of students will attend modules that take place in person at NYU Stern and in one rotating global location. NYU Stern faculty teach at all the modules, and our international modules include company visits, guest speakers, and local cultural activities. Between modules, students are completing about 20 to 25 hours per week of independent online learning. Excuse me, not online learning, but independent learning. And at the end, students are earning an MS in Business Analytics. So as you can see here is our module schedule, which is spread out through 2 calendar years. So this way, you're able to balance your vacation or your flexible work time between the years 2024 and 2025. In between module sessions, as I said before, you are not physically in class, but you are still engaged with the program through online readings, assignments, and this is to prepare you for an upcoming in-person session or to integrate the learnings from a previous session. And all activities completed asynchronously. So there's no time you would need to log on for an online course. And as you can see here, our global module for module 5 is in March of 2025 in Abu Dhabi. And here I'd like to walk you through the admissions process, which is broken down into 2 stages, the preliminary stage and the formal application. So the first step in the process is we do ask that you submit the preliminary information form and your resume, which if you're calling in, you may have already completed. But once we determine that you have met our prerequisites for the program, you can move forward with the formal application. So once you feel comfortable doing so, you can proceed directly to it. Our application is both straightforward and personal. There's usually not one part of an application that will make or break your candidacy. So we recommend that you focus on the entire story you are presenting to the admissions committee. And you can see here there's a few items associated with the application, which you'll need to submit to the online application portal. They are an updated resume, 1 essay, your official transcripts in English, 1 letter of recommendation, a copy of your passport, an application fee. And you'll see here that The GMAT, GRE are generally not required on the initial application. We do reserve the right to ask for them if we feel they're needed to make a more well-informed decision, but generally not needed. And also note that you may submit your application for initial review, even if you're waiting on a transcripts or your recommendations are still being processed. And as a last step in the process, you may be invited by the admissions committee to do a virtual selection interview at the end. So we are currently accepting applications again for the class of 2025 beginning this May. Our final deadline is actually coming up on March 15th of 2024. And again, once you submit it, a decision will be made within 3 weeks, and spaces in the class are filled on a rolling basis. So we do encourage you to submit in advance of the deadline. But we encourage you to submit an application when you feel it's ready and your strongest possible application. And our admissions team can be reached by phone or email Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I've also included the QR code, which is also available on our website as well for the application. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists. And I thought it'd be best if first we'll just have everyone introduce themselves. Marilla, I would love to, if you could start with you. Your year of graduation from MSBAi, your current role right now, and where you're located.
Sure. So I'm Marella Heinrich. My MSBAi class of 2022, and I'm located out of New Jersey. I am a end-to-end supply chain manager for J&J. While I was in the program, I was in supply chain at Unilever, and then sort of did a transition after I graduated.
Thank you. Thank you. Jaya, do you want to go next?
Sure, thank you. So I'm Jaya Vivekanandan. I'm a lead AI solutions architect at C3 AI class of 2021. And while I was in the program, I was with Anthem Insurance as a solutions advisor. So very happy and excited to talk to all of you today.
Thank you. Nag?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Nag Rajendran. I'm a class of 2022, graduated along with Marilla. I live in Boston City. I work for a company called XXL, where I play the role of a senior scientist business solutions.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for all of you for being here today. This is fantastic. So Nag, I'll start with you. Love if you could tell me a little bit how you feel the well, where were you in your career when you decided to pursue the MSBAi program, and what was your motivation for doing so?
Sure, then that's actually a great question. I was in my mid-career in my job. I had a great passion for data analytics, but I wasn't really sure how to take that to the next level. I did a lot of research in terms of which universities offers a real balance between real-time problem solving versus academia. So then I stumbled upon Stern. So this program was really a good mix of business analytics combining the real world problems and academia so that I can move to the next phase of my job. Also pursue my passion in data. So that was my, you can say like a soul searching at some point, but, really looking for more of a next level in my career, more towards data analytics.
That's great. And I definitely want to ask you more about that, but maybe you could share, Marella, where you were in your career and what prompted you to pursue a business analytics program.
Yeah, so similar to NAG, I mean, I was doing like procurement analytics this is like very specific, but for rigid plastics for Unilever. So doing some analytics around how do we how much plastic we use, how much plastic we consume, and how we can reduce it, recycle it? At which point does like a plastic water bottle, for example, like how thin can this be before the cap breaks off? And I was working with like massive data sets, but I was basically just putting them into like a Power BI or like a Tableau dashboard and then making like little charts and visuals out of it. I wasn't doing anything like advanced. I wasn't forecasting or like running regressions or doing any of that stuff. So I was just like very much consumed by it, enjoyed it a lot, like found that it was in many ways also like a creative outlet for me. So I decided like I need to pursue this passion and like take this to the next level. And like NAG, I explored a lot of analytics programs. I looked at a few in the city, a few online, and we can talk more about, you know, why
Yeah.
Stern stood out. But yeah, I just decided it was time to like turn it up a notch and make some useful conclusions out of the data and the work that I was working on.
That's great. And Jaya, how about you?
Yeah. So when I joined this program, I was at Anthem. And prior to that, my career has been in the space of software engineering. So even back then, even back around 2017, 18 is when my organization started on this path of digital transformation. So we were trying to provide more predictive capabilities into the workflows, business workflows and such. So it became immensely clear that going forward in the next decade or so, this is going to be very crucial. And that was what brought me on this journey where I required, I thought it would be beneficial to get into a program. And for me, what NYU offered was essentially this balance of in-person and virtual model.
Yep.
It also provided me the structure to enable myself and take the next step in terms of my career.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a follow-up question because I remember receiving myself and Indo Ghosh, who's our academic director and very well known. You sent an email that you had some wonderful news about your career. Can you share like about, you had I'd love to ask you how this program impacted your career.
Absolutely. So even while I was in the program, I started looking for roles where I could bring all this knowledge that I was gaining, both through the program as well as through my interactions with my wonderful cohort, right? It was a very diverse cohort. So I was trying to look for new opportunities where I could apply all these new gained skills, both within and outside my organization. In fact, the faculty directors and the faculty at MSBAi have also been very helpful in that process. I spoke to Dr. Ghosh during the program, just 101, trying to understand how I should go about this, right? And just as I graduated, I got this opportunity with C3AI, which is essentially a company which provides an enterprise AI ML platform. So the last couple of years have been extremely they have been really great in terms of the opportunities available, wherein I'm able to talk on behalf of my company and look into different organizations and solve their machine learning problems as such. So it's been very exciting. And I made that switch from traditional software into a more modern tech stack, if you will.
That's exciting. That's a wonderful story to hear. That's great. Marella, could you answer that question of how do you feel like the program impacted your, goals or professional career at this point?
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing. It's still early. You guys didn't graduate too long ago,
Yeah.
so there's a lot more. Lot more to come. Yeah.
Believe it or not, in the year and almost 2 years that it's been
Yeah.
a pretty huge impact. And like outside of like, I mean, when you think about analytics and I'm in supply chain, like it's literally everywhere. We can look at any slice of supply chain and like and apply some sort of like model to it, whether it's demand forecasting, whether it's inventory optimization, whether you're trying to reduce costs. Like there are just endless ways to slice and dice the data and like really look at it and draw some conclusions from like what next steps should be and where organizations should focus their time. So like outside of the skill set that I got from the degree itself, I mean, one thing I'll note is that when we were still in the program and I was applying for new roles, my boss and manager who recruited me to Johnson & Johnson was an EMBA Stern alumni as well. So he like called me arguably because Stern was on my resume, and like in our first interview, we strictly talked about our experience at Stern. I mean, it was like I knew I got the job like from just the way that we were like connecting on just our experiences at Stern. One of the things that like I still remember is we talked about our global trips that we took during, because he did the executive MBA that are part of like sort of the executive programs. And he said, I missed my best friend's wedding, but I went to Chile with my classmates and it was like, the best experience of my life. And I mean, yeah, that like it spoke volumes, and I hadn't even graduated yet. Like, as I was negotiating my offer for J&J, I was like, hey, by the way, I need this week off in May. I need to go
Right.
graduate and do my capstone and all that stuff. And he was like, I know exactly what you're talking about, like, no problem. So it was just like an awesome like insight into like the Stern network. And I don't know if you'll touch on that, but it is like, it's such a powerful name and it's such a powerful network. And like that alone has like shaped exactly where I went after the program, which was awesome.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. Nag, how about you?
For me, I think it's a huge impact both professionally and personally. I come from an insurance and finance background. All my career, I was in the PNC company. It is very heavy business driven and less data and analytics driven. It's a very old school business in the East Coast, if you're familiar with. So learning concepts like machine learning and then operational analytics, how to, maximize an operational challenge through various courses in degree like this was super helpful for me to like connect with the business leaders, because this course really taught us how to balance the communication of, the enough amount of technical information to your business leaders so that, you can take a really informed decision, which really impacts your company performance and whatever the line of business that you deal with. So I was able to create in fact, a neural network model as a part of the capstone project to my employer, and we were really able to solve a real-time problem, which was quite changed my position in the company, to be frank. So that was a huge takeaway for me. After that, like life was never the same. And a lot of people were consulting me like, hey, and of course, NYU Stern is quite reputed, and people recognize you in the company like, hey, he went to Stern, and you get a really, it was quite a life-changing experience, both personally and professionally for me.
Oh, that's wonderful. No, I'm glad you brought up the capstone, because it's definitely, it's on my list for a question, because it is such a big part of the program. Really, I'm going to start with you. You were mentioning, looking at other programs, trying to decide, how do you, there are a lot of different types of programs out there. Sometimes people are looking at just regular executive MBA programs or other master's programs. What kinds of things did you look for when you decided on Stern, and why?
It's a loaded question because I did a lot of research and spent a lot of time looking at a lot of different programs. I think for me, one of the things that was really critical is that an analytics program is not taught through the business school at every single university. So like at Columbia, for example, I think it's like the School of Professional Studies or something along those lines. And to what Nag just mentioned is like, what I was looking for and what I did end up getting out of Stern is connecting like that business and that leadership mindset to like data, and like having that leadership experience like in a professional workplace was really critical for me, because I was looking to advance my career and I was looking to advance myself professionally primarily. So that was the primary thing, is like I was looking at analytics programs through business schools. What stood out to me at Stern the most was, one, that it's a global degree program. So our cohort was so diverse. Like, I'm somebody who values diversity, and we had folks from all over the world join us in New York City. And it was awesome to learn from them. It's so rewarding and invaluable in many ways to have a global program like that. And then finally, I'd say is the Abu Dhabi trip and those experiences, I mean, like, you know, like my boss said, I mean, they're really, really priceless. So I was looking forward to having that experience as well.
That's great. That's great. Did you guys find, Jaya and now, did you guys look at other programs? Sometimes people aren't, but I'm just curious if you looked at other programs when trying to decide.
Yeah, I mean, as Myrla said, like there's a lot of research I did for almost like months and months, and for me it was, you know, I wanted to have a real good hybrid option, not complete online. You know, I was looking forward to some campus time. I don't think there's any program offered by U.S. universities was given such a hybrid option. I wouldn't say to the point, like even till this date, you know, you can go to a campus for 2 weeks and also you can do online. Which was a very good trade-off for me to keep the full-time job, also like, you know, do the course, or also go to the campus, right? Because the interactions with the professors in class is invaluable. Like you can't replace that.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meeting
Yeah.
people in person and going for a drink after class, talking about the assignments and stuff. It was a great learning experience, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And
Building a
we are
real
coming from
community.
in COVID times too. At the time, this was like we were super excited to see people in person. You know, it's like,
Right.
oh, yeah. So yeah, so a hybrid option, you know, global module in Abu Dhabi was a great selling point. You know, try to like learn from different cultures and go to different campus. And it's New York City, right? So it's can't argue with that.
That's great. That's great. And
No, I
Jaya, did you
completely second
similar?
that.
Yeah.
I completely second what Nag just said. And for me, like I mentioned earlier, the biggest draw was the hybrid structure of the module. There are certain programs where there is a first 2 week or a 1 week immersion, and then you're on your own throughout. But this is like well balanced. You meet every so often in between the modules. So you have that connection with your cohort and as well as the faculty. So that mix of online versus in person is what basically drew me to Stern. And uh, for some of our prospective candidates, I think Stern is known to be one of the pioneers in the field of data and analytics to broach this as a separate space on its own. So that was yet another draw, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. I wanted to, one thing that I think sometimes prospective students maybe have some concerns about is, you know, really balancing the in-person experience and keeping up with the workload in between, you know, balancing that with, you know, a full-time job, personal commitments. And I feel like everybody has a different style of dealing with that. But do you guys want to share maybe like some tips or how you personally handled, you know, managing everything for over the course of that quick year?
I could go.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I mean, it is an investment in the sense that 5 weeks in a calendar year is quite a bit of time that you're dedicating. So obviously there isn't too much time for like other vacations that year and such. But then there is so much you gain on hindsight, right?
Yeah.
That is the main selling point of this program, is that in-person module interaction. And there's so much to gain that. And at least for me personally, it worked out. I was able to plan around those in-person dates, and I tried to make the most of those sessions.
Yeah, that's great. Do you want to
One
add something?
I'll say too is, you know, totally agree with you, Jaya. I mean, you'll know your dates and your due dates and assignments like way in advance. So you just have to put the onus on yourself to manage your time better. There are nights, there are weekends, there are friends you can lean on for support. You sort of can, and it depends on the class, but a lot of the time we got to collaborate with each other. So like, you know, Saturday mornings we'd be on FaceTime and like bouncing ideas off each other and trying to like complete some assignments and that kind of stuff. So there are ways that you can make this less painful for yourself, but it is a rigorous program. You will have to invest time in it. You just have to like manage it really well. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of those guys. For me, I made sure my employer is aware of this program that I'm studying part-time in NYU Stern. I made sure that I don't take up too much work so that I have to spend weekends, if not normal, if I'm not studying. I also made sure that my family is aware, like, my partner was aware, so that, it's very important. You got to make sure that everybody around you knows that there's no weekend parties, there's no like long trips and stuff
Yeah,
like
like
that.
don't invite me. Can't come.
So though we had so much fun with our cohort
Yeah.
members, that's a different
Yes.
story, but it requires, I would say this, like it requires a very high morale and discipline, that it's a very intense program. And you can get so much out of it if you give your 100% of commitment to this, right? So, and the learnings is like for lifelong. So, it was a very life-changing disciplined experience.
Just to add to that, on hindsight, a year passes by really quickly.
It does. It does. So quick. So quick. The other thing, when I'm often talking to myself and Prati, or often talking to prospective students, one thing we always remind them is that obviously they're learning from top-notch faculty. Our full-time faculty are famous. They've done research. They're consulting to top companies. So you're learning from them, but you're also learning from your peers within the cohort, right? I would love to hear like your experiences of like how you felt you learned from being part of that cohort-based program, and what you felt like your takeaways from that was. I don't know, Nag, do you want to start?
Sure, yeah. No, that's a great question. As you said before, like we had like such a wide, diverse cohort members. Coming from, Mirla, for example, she came from supply chain. I'm from insurance. We had people coming from manufacturing. We had people coming from pure data science, like, data engineers and data scientists, like very technical guys who are also like masters of this field already. So there is so much of different diverse group of people. So when you started interacting with them, you learn a lot about how different people approach the same problem. That problem solving approach was quite different, that you would have thought like, oh, there's a different way to approach this. You're really complicating yourself. So we had so many conversations in the Zoom meeting that like you could have solved in like so easy, like for the capstone work, for example. So it really adds a different, such a wide, diverse flavor when you have people who already has an MBA degree, for example, was also in our cohort. It gives you so much background in terms of how do you approach a problem, and because the whole business analytics is all like solving real life problems, right? And how do you add value to your business? How do you change your organization that you're part of? So, or where do you want to take the data to the next level? So the diverse group of views really helps you when you start interacting with your cohort.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because the cohorts are typically not just all these different nationalities and so global, but it's also diverse by industry and function, which I think helps everyone. Did you guys want to add on to that, or?
Maybe one other thing I would highlight, I totally agree with you, Nag, but is the size of the cohort as well. So, I mean, I think we were like 55 or 60 people. So we had a lot of opportunities to like be really intimate and like have those discussions. And like for a capstone, for example, like we had capstone mentors and leaders who we like met with every single week. And it was an awesome opportunity to like get to actually know at some point in the program, like people individually and how they got to where they are, where they plan to go, and how they, like you said, Nag, like how they solve problems, and how different organizations and like cultures value those different schools of thought. But the size of the program was really awesome because it actually allowed us to like have those discussions in depth. So that was really great. And like you said, we were in person, so maybe we were just like chatting away because we were so excited to talk to each other, but we got really intimate and like talked through a lot of those like thought processes. It was awesome.
Great. Jay, did you wanted to add something?
No, pretty much the same thing. The capstone group is a group that you work with throughout the length of the course, and it's this 4 to 5 people that you are constantly working with on a single problem and showcase value at the end, right? So these are deep involvements, and also aside from the capstone, there are a number of group assignments wherein like what Mirella was mentioning, you have FaceTimes and you're trying to solve data science problems online. So it's very exciting. So you benefit from the diversity of the class, and the class being a good size. It is these are all very useful interactions. And at the end of the program, you have this wonderful network that you could fall back on throughout the your career, right? So it's wonderful.
Well, your answer gave me the perfect segue to, and we'll get to questions too, but to the capstone, because it is such a big part of the program. And, Jay, do you want to continue? If you do remember your capstone and maybe describe it briefly and for
Sure.
everyone, just to give people an idea of like the kinds of projects people work on.
So I do remember what my capstone was, and one of the members who was basically whose idea this was working in the bonds market, and our capstone was about the viability of ESG bonds and how small municipalities could benefit from issuing ESG qualified bonds. So we looked at the data of the last 10 years of different municipalities to compare how these municipalities were doing in terms of raising funds for ESG versus non-ESG. So that was the capstone. A very, very interesting and a field that has since taken a lot of interest as well. So yeah, it was wonderful.
Thank you. Now, I know you had you briefly chatted about it before, but can you talk a little bit about your capstone?
Sure. I'm going to go back to the capstone pitch night. So for me, we had a real operational challenge where our underwriters, who are the people who price insurance risk for big companies, were dealing with how to approach a client. Like, how do we even price a risk? There's so much volume of, accounts come in, and they don't know which one to approach first. So I was able to build a neural network model, which is a machine learning model, or to be more specific, it's a supervised learning model. I'm sure our machine learning professor will be happy to speak about this now, which ranked this, the clients based on different attributes. So it created a more automated machine learning approach of giving, this is the most prospective customer, you can go do business with them, or this is the least prospective customers because of XYZ factors. So that really changed how underwriters used to approach these type of risks in the past. They used to go through manually every single account, and it takes weeks and weeks, and those guys are not cheap. They're very expensive people to pay. So this not only saved us a lot of operational cost, it also really saved us in terms of better risk management in general, right? So insurance is all about taking a risk aversive approach, right? So this machine learning model was purely based on the data mining in R that we learned. Professor Bhavna taught us, and operational analytics, the follow-up course. I think it was module 3. Our group was able to take a lot of concepts from those subjects and really solve the problem in a more meaningful way.
That's fantastic. That's a great story. How it affected you and how it affected your career. That's amazing. Mirella, do you wanted to share yours?
Sure. I was part of a capstone project in the way that you pick up a capstone project is that your
thank you. That's great if you could give some context.
NAG came to us and said, I work for a company that has a problem. Here's the problem we have. Does anybody want to join my team? Other ways you can do this is other companies can come to NYU Stern and say, my company has this problem. Does anybody want to work on it? And so Mount Sinai came to Stern through Mike Berger, who is Chief Technology Officer at Mount Sinai, and he's an alum of the program.
Yeah.
He basically came to us and he said, Mount Sinai has this issue, which a lot of hospitals have, where this black box model exists through 3M, and we sort of need help decoding it. This model basically predicts how much Medicaid funding each hospital will need based on thousands of variables, which a little less important, and I don't want to bore you guys to death. But every single year, this black box model basically underestimates how much funding Mount Sinai needs, and we lose a lot of money on the Medicaid program. So we would like for somebody to like come in, reverse engineer it, decode it, and let us know what variables they're looking at and how they're calculating exactly how much funding we're getting for the Medicaid program. I oversimplified it by a lot. This was a huge, massive undertaking. I mean, to the point that we did what we could to help decode some of it. Like we had to like basically pick just the Bronx and look at patients who were just in the Bronx in order to try to determine or like come up with something. And actually, one of the things that was supposed to happen for the subsequent class of 2023 is they were going to pick up where we left off and like sort of continue on our project. So I'd be curious to know if that happened, but it was really, really, really interesting because it forced us to think about like what different types of models we can use. I think we ended up using a random forest model, and which is like a strong model for basically nonlinear relationships when you have a whole crap ton of variables. So that's basically what we were dealing with. We didn't know if we had a linear relationship with the patients that we had. So it was an awesome learning experience. We brought tremendous value to the Mount Sinai team. Like Mike Berger was super excited and happy with the work that we were able to bring to that team of analysts. And I'm definitely going to follow up to see if anybody picked up.
I'll try to find out. I'll try to find out for you as well.
But
I'm happy to follow up. Oh,
that was it. Yeah, it was great. It was awesome.
Well, thank you guys for sharing your experiences. I definitely want to, I think there are some, I'd love to open, to anyone who would like to answer any questions for the panelists by typing into the Q&A box. But I do think that there might be a couple questions. Prachi, do you have any questions? I know there's one, I think, that came through that I think is an important one is, with regards to some people come in, potentially concerned about their level of technical background, right? Their experience. Maybe each of you could share, where you were, like, and from a technical standpoint prior to joining the program and your confidence level, and maybe advice to anybody that feels a little bit less confident about their technical capabilities. Marilla, do you could comment on that?
Sure. I think that there are a couple of things. So if you do choose to enroll in the program, you'll get pre-module work. And if you have less experience with some of the technicalities that are being asked of you, that is really your opportunity to like sit down, read the course material, read exactly what the expectations are, and like read through what the content is going to be in module 1, because it is a hybrid program. When you start module 1, they don't necessarily start from the beginning. They expect that you've done the pre-module work, and the program sort of kicks off from there. So if you're worried about the like lack of experience that you have, definitely look deeply into the pre-module work. I am one of these people, so I'm speaking from experience. I was also very nervous about, not having the background that I think a lot of the folks, or I thought, would have in my class, and it turned out like a bunch of us didn't have it. Reach out to professors. Like, you'll have contact information in a really good network during pre-module. Like, reach out to them, talk to them, ask questions, say, I'm nervous about this. What advice can you offer me for this? Do you have additional materials that I can read and decipher because I'm still not fully understanding this. Use YouTube. There's a whole ton of like really good people on YouTube who sort of like dumb down some of these things for you if you need a dumb down. I did, so no shame in that. Yeah, I mean, there are a ton of resources at your disposal. Use them, just be vocal about it, and like be very intentional with the pre-work and like what's expected in module 1.
And just thank you. That was a perfect way to describe it. And just for all the listeners, prior to each module, including module 1, you are sent pre-module work. So you know exactly what your assignments are to get you ready for that module 1. And I totally agree with you, Marilla, that that's a great opportunity to say, okay, here's maybe areas I really need to improve on. What else can I do to prepare? And there's so many, obviously free, we give you resources, but there's also a lot of free online resources, Coursera, Udemy, YouTube, right, that are out there for everyone. No, I think that's fantastic. I don't know, Nag and Jai, do you have any, maybe if you want to comment, did you feel like you were coming from a different place or similar to Marilla?
Yeah, I can add to what Marilla said. I'm not a programming background, though I had some general idea of the programming concepts. I did not write a single line of R code before I started the program. And I believe I counted this, like I believe I wrote 1,000 lines of code out in R in advanced machine learning by end of module 3 for the capstone work. So but of course I took the subject serious, and I learned the pre-module work and the module work and all the assignments pretty serious. So don't worry if you're not like a hardcore programmer, or like you've written Python or R. The course does gives you a very good amount of introduction. They will handhold you and just walk you through how to catch up all the basic foundational concepts. But yeah, so I could say I myself is a living testament. Now I can write R code. No big deal.
Yeah. Jaya?
Yeah. I actually came from a technical background, been in software engineering throughout. So while I'm extremely familiar with programming, there were always new things that I still had to learn. For example, my programming language of choice was Java at the time. It's since turned to Python. So R, of course, I did a lot of R during the course. So yes, there is a little bit of learning. There is a little bit of foundational concepts that all of us needed to understand and build upon as part of the course. But I also remember where in group assignments where I was able to collaborate with my cohort, some of them who are not as technical, and I benefited from their business knowledge, right? So some of the more intense programming assignments are usually group assignments. So while you're still required to know the foundationals and do your own coursework individually, the capstone and the more rigorous elements of the course, you will have enough support both from the faculty as well as your cohort to lead upon.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Prachi, I think there was a question coming in at one point about the network, alumni network. Do you want to just read that question out?
Yes. So one person asked, since graduating, how have you stayed in touch with the alumni community or stayed engaged with the alumni community?
Yeah. Does anyone want to answer that, or you can answer it in a different way? How have you benefited from the Stern network? Marilla, do you want to answer that?
Sure. NYU Stern Alumni Network is massive. So there are many ways to reach many, many people. Primarily through LinkedIn, there are groups. Stern Network is also a platform in and of itself, which is basically LinkedIn, but just for Stern alumni. So you absolutely can join that, create a profile, talk to other alumni, see what they're up to. Join an alumni panel, join all the alumni newsletters. You'll get something in your inbox every single day. There are events, there are groups, there are people, there are online, virtual, in person, on a Tuesday, on a Saturday. Like, there are countless ways to keep in contact with alumni. It's up to you to choose like
Right.
what you're passionate about. So like, for example, me sitting on this alumni panel, like I'm passionate about the program that I graduated from. I want to recruit people for this program. So like I chose this as, you know, my way of involvement.
And we
But there
thank
are
you.
many,
Yeah.
many ways to do this. So absolutely. There are many ways to do this. Yeah, it's a huge network. There are a lot of platforms and a lot of opportunities to stay in contact. I think another thing I'll add too is NAG and I are in a group chat from our cohort. There's like literally 60 of us in a WhatsApp group chat. And we've had this group chat now for like 2-3 years,
Wow.
since 2021 that it started. And we very regularly keep in touch, whether it's just for like happy birthday or like, hey, unfortunately I was impacted by a layoff. Does anybody have something within their organization that they could, you know, keep me in mind for, things like that. So that's something trajectory of like just the nature of this program. Like I said earlier, like we're small cohort, we got very intimate and like very close with each other. So that's another, like, that's the primary way I keep in touch with everybody, is just like WhatsApp.
Great. That's great. That's great. Thank you. And Nag and Judge, anything to add there? I think she covered it all with everything.
No, I think she summed
Our
up.
network.
There's nothing to cover more.
Um, Prachi, I don't know, are there any other questions that you see that have come in?
Yes, I'm answering one right now that's a little bit more admissions related, so I'll
Mhm.
post that in the chat in just a bit. One person did ask how the business analytics program compares to data science programs, if anyone has familiarity. But I think the interesting part of this question is they ask, does the data engineering component cover architecture and design? So maybe if you can talk a little bit about the courses that you took, you know, which courses ended up being impactful to you and to your experience, and ended up being the most applicable in your current roles. Maybe that might be a nicer, more holistic way of looking at the question too.
Yeah, maybe if you guys can think of a course or courses that you feel like were most, you know, impactful for your position, or even like at the time or even now.
I can go. I think data mining is probably the most closest to data science centric or related coursework we had. And operational analytics is something that really talks about different bottlenecks in your operations in any company. I wouldn't say this is a data science program, because there's a lot of operational analytics is involved. Data science is all purely just big data, you know, the infrastructure that goes behind the big data and programming, right? But this is not just pure coding and data analysis. This also talks about how to optimize a problem. You know, how do you min-max any operational challenges you have. You know, we studied a lot of coursework. Sorry, a lot of case studies. Especially the one stood out for my job was John P. Carter's framework for leading change. I think it's in module 4, I believe. Egger taught us, JP Egger.
Yeah.
Was pretty it just blew our mind. Like, you know, how do you really bring different organizational structures together, you know, when you're working in a very diverse company. Like, you know, nowadays companies are very complex in structure. How do you bring it all together? So so it's a lot about, you know, business problems and analytics and operations, and you layer it on top of that, or you put the foundation as the data mining, or you know, Python. That's how I would sum this up. Not definitely just a pure simple data science course. This is more than data science, what we learned in this degree.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to my point earlier, it's taught through a business school and a business lens. So like there are analytics programs that are taught through different schools at different universities. So this one, like to Nag's point, there are definitely like big data classes, but the goal here is to like solve real life organizational problems, like business
Right.
problems.
Now that's great. And no, that's incredibly helpful. It doesn't look like, I'm just cognizant of the time that went by very fast. I wanted to just wrap up by maybe each of you could just, words of wisdom for anyone, thinking about applying, what kind of advice would you give to someone as to why you think they should do the program? Jaya, do you want to start?
Absolutely. I mean, if you are at that stage in your career where you need a slight push in terms of where you want to be next, this is definitely the course. And when I did this 4 years ago, when I was in a similar situation, considering courses, even then it was very clear that this is going to be the field of the coming days. And I guess with everything else that's been happening with large language models and such, if anything, this has only been reinforced. The program will definitely open up a lot of doors for you. And I would strongly recommend you consider NYU Stern as one of your future programs in advancing your career.
Nag, put you on the spot next.
Sure. No, I think you did. You summarized very well, Jaya. Like, if you really don't know what to do and in your point of your career that you're sort of scratching your head, like, where do I go from here? I think this is a great program. It teaches you right balance of, business as well as the data science portion of it. I found out that machine learning was my passion after going through the program. Everybody discovers their sort of the inner passion in terms of analytics, in the world of analytics. So the word of wisdom I would say is, if you ended up taking this program, just dedicate a decent portion of your time, learn, talk to your professors, go and interact with as much as you can, because you learn a lot more than what you invested in this program. So it is a great worth of time and money, if I have to put it this way. If you really wanted to take your career to your next level, so that you're not just boxed in like a data engineer or just like a machine learning engineer or just a data scientist, right? So this opens up so much of leadership roles in your organization, or in any organization, for a matter of fact.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point. Marella?
Second to what Jaya and Nag said, and then the only thing I would just leave you with is that, especially today, everybody cares about analytics. Every company, no matter like what business they're in, care about analytics, and probably don't know enough about it, probably are not doing enough with it, are probably scared of like AI and what it's going to do and how it's going to eliminate everybody's jobs. You can be that voice of reason within your space, and like, give yourself an opportunity to like step up and be a leader and say, hey, I know something about this thing that everybody's talking about. Like, let me explain it to you. Let me take charge. Let me, be this person from a business perspective, like solve this issue and help you lead and come to this resolution. I mean, when we were in the program 2021 to 2022, this was a huge topic of conversation. ChatGPT burst the bubble to even like levels way beyond that. It's a huge opportunity for you to capitalize on in like today's day and age. Is just like having a really good in-depth understanding of like analytics and machine learning and AI.
That's fantastic. I want to thank each and every one of you. Thank you so much. This was absolutely amazing. Such valuable information to share your stories, advice to all our prospective students. Thank you so much. I want to thank all our participants for calling in tonight, or it could be morning, wherever you're calling in globally across the world. And thank you so much. And again, please feel free to In terms of next steps, if you'd like to talk to anyone, an alum through the process, we have these amazing alums right here that are always willing to speak to people with individual questions. For any admissions related questions, please do contact our office. And again, we are accepting applications with the application deadline of coming up very soon on March 15th. Anyway, thank you guys again. And we really appreciate your time and commitment as alums.
Thank you all. Good to see you
Of
all.
course, thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye now.